Recording is on.
Hey everyone, and happy Friday. We are on the UX research call number. I do not know, but I will look it up. But I think it's call number 3 or 4.
I have 4 on my calendar.
Is it 4 of the Bitcoin design community? And we've got a great bunch of people here. We're going to be talking predominantly about personas today. It is the 2nd of September 2022. My name's Mo, and we've got Johnny here as well as Hafsa. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, guys.
Yeah, so my name is Hafsa. I'm actually a senior designer with a research and design company called Superlunar. We have been researching everything within the Web3 sphere, but also specifically sponsoring and funding people who are working on really interesting Bitcoin projects. And so I'm just happy to be here and kind of listen in and learn.
Yeah, my name's Johnny. I work. I have a finance background, but right now I work in business development, specifically with Web3 and crypto at a fairly large company. And similar to Hafsa, interested to be on this call and learn. New to UX, I guess, in some ways, but always designing, really, right?
Yeah, awesome. This is just a very free, relaxed call. Anyone's free to jump in, speak at any time. Like, I want the opinions and input from you guys because, that's how I think the best things are created. Just to give you some brief background, so I'm kind of championing more research approach within the Bitcoin design community. I really want to get the product development process as close to the users as possible. It's really, really important because I think we only build better products if we just keep on tying that in with what the users want and actually getting them to be more vocal about what they want. So part of that is the user personas. Currently within the Bitcoin design guide, we'd like to add in some information. Do you know what the Bitcoin design guide is, Hafsa?
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
Cool. So we don't actually have like a space within the Bitcoin design guide right now with the different personas. Hey, Minnie is here. Sorry, this is we've worked together before. We've just jumped off another call. Minnie, thank you so much for coming.
Of course, I'll be listening mostly, but if I hear some things that I have opinions on, I'll say it.
Cool, no worries, Minnie. Happy to have you here.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we've really been wanting to add some user personas into the Bitcoin design guide. There's a lot of little projects going on within the community that are building different Bitcoin products, and all the different people have basically said, we want to have a persona that we can build for. So we're very interested in how to create those personas. Diana, who was actually supposed to be on the call today as well, she was unfortunately sick. So I'm just gonna, free run this one on my own with the help of you guys. So I think it might be interesting. Do you guys have any experience in user personas in general? Johnny, Hafsa?
So I'm not a product designer per se. I've worked with product designers. I would say at this point, it's more of a very intense curiosity because kind of where I work right now, we're trying to understand personas, not specifically for a product, but in terms of the overall audience that we're addressing with our research. Our researchers develop a lot of different prototypes. For the most part, they are geared towards builders, so people who are specifically looking to do a particular thing with a particular platform, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. So that's really where more of my interest with personas lies, if that makes sense.
So it's almost like as a service to the people that you're helping, almost.
Correct.
Yeah, cool, nice. Yeah, same. It's the same for the Bitcoin design community. And you, Johnny, I know you have a business background.
Yeah, so my only experience with persona specifically is from a UX course that I took. But so that's really it. But I mean, understanding the user, it's something that, in a business role, you do pretty much every day, whether you knowingly do it or, implicitly.
And Millie, if I'm able to ask you, do you have any experience using user personas? Because Millie's more on the design side of things. She's also going into some research now. Have you used personas before in your design process?
To be quite frank, not really, because I mostly work with startups. So I would say resources are pretty limited in terms of doing research and all that. But in my previous jobs before being a designers, I mean, we wouldn't see persona per se, but there would be a customer profile, right? Where they share what their habits are with the product and sort of the lifestyle. But I've also seen sometimes that persona were literally made up, and that's not good either. It's good to have persona, but they need to be real people, not something that comes out of nowhere or yeah, just that.
Hey, Stephen, happy to have you here. We just did a quick intro. We have a nice bunch of people here, but yeah, feel free to introduce yourself and.
Hey, I'm Steven. Yeah, I'm a designer. I work on Bitcoin Design Guide, among other things. Never actually been to one of these UX research calls here, but Magashni invited me to give some feedback on some of the stuff you're looking at today. So happy to be here.
Yeah, cool. Happy to have you here. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I mean, where we are now is in the Bitcoin Design Guide. We're at a point where we actually want to include some user personas, but we need to try to figure out, I think, two things. The one would be, how do we actually collect the data to put these personas together? And the second thing is, we already have some research data, which I'll share with you guys in a bit. And should we use that research data, or should we create a new way of creating this data that will actually be useful to builders? Because I think the main point is it being actually useful to people. And I think that's where, and I know Millie and I've spoken about this before, but it's bringing that persona as close to the development process as possible. And sometimes it can feel really very much like there's this persona and, oh, there's a pretty face there and all these different characteristics written about this person, but how do we actually use it in the design? Like, tell me how I can use it in my design. So I think it feels like that's the biggest challenge with the user personas, and that might be why they're not that widely used. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on this or, yeah.
I did have one thought, and this comes from sort of working at my previous job where personas were pretty integral to our work. I worked at a security company and I was part of a brand design team. And kind of to your point about, how do you actually sort of use personas in kind of an actionable way? Something that I really liked about the way we worked over at that security company was that we referred to our personas as people conversationally. And so as an example, we had a user persona named Gary, who was like an IT admin. So he's like somebody that, is going to get a lot of problems shoved on his desk. He's somebody who is responsible for juggling a lot of different balls for his IT department. He's leading everything. And he would refer to this persona in conversation. So it was like, what would Gary do? What does Gary think about this thing? How is Gary looking at this particular problem? What, purpose is this going to serve for Gary and help solve his issues? So it was kind of a nice way of regularly baking in this persona's characteristics and problems into our everyday work, so that we were always, whatever we were designing or writing or, coming up with as a project, our personas were always baked into that process. So it was a very nice way of, I think, making it something that was actionable and not just, a pretty face on the wall.
What would Gary do? What would Gary do? That's it. That's the question. You want to say something, Stephen? You were...
I was just giving an emoji of a clapping emoji because I thought that sounded like a good idea. You know,
Yeah.
trying
What
to
would Gary do? Love
yeah.
it.
Trying to think about them as real people sounds like a good idea, because I mean it's the same way that it's like if you're saying, you know, like if you know, Magashni, if you and I were like talking about, well, like, you know, like what would Christoph think of this, or what would Bosch think of this, when you think of the persona as a real person, I think it seems helpful.
So it's almost like you have this person, this is Gary, he's working in IT, and then you have the spider diagram coming off Gary of
Yep.
his real day, everyday life. He's in a rush, he's multitasking. If he's going to use this app, this is likely how he's going to want to use it. And you put
Exactly.
yourself in his shoes. Okay. So it's like, okay, so it's almost thinking a bit about his motivations and about the speed at which he's going to want to use the interface as well.
We also, to kind of pile up on that, we had a lot of user research sessions at my old job. So occasionally I would sit in on these, user research, but user testing. And basically we would have like a whole slew of different Garys, and we would show them the product, have them walk through it, and, you know, they would do the thing and, you know, tell us what they thought, what issues they were having, what they liked, etc. That was one really nice way to kind of put a face to that particular persona. We also had another persona who was actually based off of a real person. So this was a CISO, which I believe is a Chief Information Security Officer. And she was actually a CISO at, you know, a university, a prominent American university. And we based our CISO persona off of her. So her name was Helen at the time. So our persona was just CISO Helen. And that was actually kind of cool because we had this actual physical person that we could go to and, you know, kind of double check things, make sure that when we were doing things that were targeted towards this particular persona, we had that person who was sort of that real life personification and could give us, you know, actual feedback.
And it comes back to what Millie said, is that these personas should be created with real people in mind, which is really important. Welcome to the call Shirkin, if I pronounced your name correctly. Nice to have you here. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello. Yeah. Sorry. I just I started to kind of keep track of the Bitcoin Slack space as of recent. I saw this call posted in there, so thought I'd tag in and just listen in. But yeah, Shirkan's kind of like the web handle. Name's Jacob Mead. I product designer working on various tasks, various different projects. I'm not sure I can speak to any of them right now due to NDAs, but yeah, happy to be here and very excited about the space of Bitcoin.
Welcome. We're happy to have you here. Please keep on joining in on our calls and contributing, because your knowledge is valuable. You know, I'm sure you have some valuable stuff to say that you can share based on your. Have you actually used personas in your roles? Any of your roles?
Yeah. So I don't have as in the roles that I've had in the past and to now, I haven't had much play on the UX side of things. I do contribute. I'm more on the UI side, branding and kind of illustration, kind of straddling a lot of different areas on that side of things. But user personas is something that I'm familiar with. You know, it just as soon as I jumped in, you guys were in the conversation of like, how do you think about this person as you're kind of your day-to-day pushing the pixels, right? You know, it's kind of hard to translate a person once you're kind of in the screen and you're doing, you know, you're doing exactly that. You're thinking about screens. You're thinking about things that aren't necessarily people. So yeah, it's something that I've struggled with in the past, kind of thinking about personas and so forth. But yeah, no, the kind of my normie job right now, they aren't using personas in a very productive way. Not a role that I'm responsible for, but happy to contribute, see what I can add to that conversation, maybe
I love
post
that.
this call. Yeah, and then before that, I worked at an agency, a product agency that obviously it was very integral in that process. You know, the product process of user interviews, developing personas, testing, so on and so forth. So
Perfect. Well,
happy to get back to that.
perfect. I would love your input on that in how we can incorporate that into the design process. I have like a very semi-blank FigJam file because I love really to take actionable things from a phone call. So we all just jump in and we all just jam and we can just start to think together, you know. Never underestimate what you can jam together in half an hour. You would be
That's
really
right.
surprised. Like, so ideally, I think maybe as a goal, maybe we can try to brainstorm around how do we create the personas? What would be the best way to create them? So how do we actually get the data? What characteristics will actually be useful to the product developer? What characteristics are not useful, you know, because we can find out that they like the color red or they like drinking cappuccino, but if that has nothing to do with the design of the interface, we don't need to know that information, you know. So I guess
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, there we go.
Yep.
And I think that's how where user personas have lost their strength because they've been so far from the actual design process. So we can just, you know, jam on Figma,
Mhm.
try and brainstorm together. How do we collect the information? And what information do we think we need to collect to actually be able to build something useful as opposed to something that sits as an artifact on a shelf somewhere. So I will share I'll share a Figma file here. I think it's pretty much open to editing access. I will have a look that there's anyone with link can edit. Yeah, anyone with link can edit. Cool. I just linked to some interesting stuff that I was reading. Why do personas fail? At the moment, you know, we want to add in user personas to the Bitcoin design guide to help other builders, and we want to add it in the most useful way as possible. And we have a Figma file at the moment, which was created based off of some research that was already done. And this is the current template that we have with that information that we had. But we've had a very nice discussion, so I think maybe it might be interesting to start with the question of how do we collect info for the personas and just kind of open that up as a discussion. How do you think we should collect information for the user personas? What's the most useful way? What do you guys think?
Well, generally, I know it as surveys and interviews. Interviews are obviously more expensive and much more time consuming to do. Surveys, you just have to make sure you distribute it to the people that you want, you know, have it be widespread enough.
Yeah.
I imagine the Bitcoin community, like on Twitter or something, would be more than welcome or more than happy to fill out a survey. But
I have a more interactive way. I'm not going to do the typing over here. We can also just all put in a whole bunch of sticky notes. That's more fun, right? Instead of me just doing the typing.
yeah.
We
Just
make it a
whiteboard
bit more fun. How about everyone just grab a sticky note and just, you know, try to brainstorm how you think would be a good way to collect this information. Cool. Awesome. I like this. Very good. Let's see. Um, Cool. Jacob's busy voting. Nice. Yep. Steven says, yeah.
So I have one question. How much do we sort of use Twitter or sort of social media to engage with folks? Because I feel like as somebody who's always worked in marketing, I'm like, oh yeah, obviously you can kind of put a shout out to the community on Twitter, but I don't know if that's something that Bitcoin Design Group typically does.
I can let Steven answer the question for that one because he's been in the community a bit longer than me. So feel free, Steven.
Yeah, I mean, we have a Twitter account, and right now Bosch is maintaining it. Always open to suggestions on things we can do better for that. I mean, we got a couple different things that say, every month we have kind of a community call. And right before the community call, there's like a newsletter that goes out that Mo helps out with. And it just kind of is like a, digest of everything going on in the community. What projects are people looking for? Also, what people need help with, like looking for help, looking for input on this kind of one. And that usually gets tweeted out. I don't think we've ever done a specific, hey, we're looking for research on X, Y, Z kind of things, but there's no reason why it couldn't be used for that.
Cool. I like that.
Good. Yeah. The community has a very flexible, very open, I think, kind of ethos, if I could use that word. So, yeah. Nice. Everyone's just jamming. That Twitter one was good as well from Hafsa. You can actually get some people. Ask a rubber duck. We have fun too. Nice one, Steven. That might be interesting also to call out on within the community. Yeah, just feel free to go ahead, Hasfa.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's a nice cost-effective way to sort of garner participation. I put a link to something called user testing, which we used at my old job. I don't know what the cost is though. I assume it's not cheap, but yeah.
Okay, Steven is going sci-fi on us. I can just see. Okay.
Yeah, in the past we also used. Sorry, I was on mute. We also had used user testing in the past. I know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's expensive, but really, really great tool. There's a bunch of other ones out there too that are similar, and I think there's. I'll see if I can find the link, and I'm sure y'all are familiar with this, but there are a few, and user testing does this as well. Keep me honest here, but it'll amalgamate the data. It'll kind of keep track of things and create reports on the data for you based off specific things that you may note or whatnot as you watch the playbacks. So that's quite useful.
Yeah, that tracks with what I've seen.
You've got some nice ones here.
Yeah, and we've even used it for obviously user testing too. So create like 2 separate prototypes. You got like 2 concepts you want to test in Figma, and so you'll create an A/B and use user testing for that. I actually really enjoy that because you get a video of, and it's really useful when you can see your user, actually see their facial expressions as they're clicking through the prototypes, and you can do monitored or unmonitored, depending on kind of the fidelity of your mock. But those are very useful in kind of identifying things that are working or not working.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
Different from
I've never.
personas.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying it's a bit of a yarn ball away from personas, but just the use case, that usefulness of that tool.
Engage the plebs. See, we're all in a Friday mood here. Nice. Okay. So we've got some nice ones here. Maybe we can just vote. You know, I guess everyone knows the stamp tool. That's just the stamp tool here, you know. Just feel free to grab whatever you want to grab and then just vote on one of the ones that you think might be a good method. That one as well.
Is there any limit on number of votes we get?
Oh, good one. I actually, good question. How many votes is it normally, Stephen? Is it 4? Is it 4 normally?
Or I don't know what normal is. I was just wondering.
Yeah, I know in these design, maybe we go for 4 votes per person. So
Sounds good.
yeah, 1, 2, 3,
I think I've done
4.
2, maybe.
Yep, I've done 4. 1, 2, 3. Ah, nice. See everyone counting their votes. Nice. Is everyone kind of finished with voting, or?
I'm good.
Yeah, feels like everyone's finished. We've got some nice ones here. So surveys definitely got a lot of votes. Conducting surveys, and I see Stephen, you suggested that one. You want to maybe just
Well, actually, I was just somebody else suggested it. I was just writing it down. That's all. So it's actually somebody else's. Somebody else was talking about it. Maybe it was Johnny. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, I mentioned it just because I think it's easiest to get a lot of participation from a survey. You can just kind of, send links out on Twitter, wherever you want, just try and get, and it's probably fairly cheap considering, the other factors.
Yep. Nice one. I'll take that one to the side here. And then we have another one. Look at traditional payment apps and how people use them. This one, was this also one by you, Stephen?
Yeah, it's I mean, not really a fully formed idea. It's just more of a general notion that when I think about building these kinds of products, we on the one hand, it is good to like look at existing, Bitcoin wallets and, analyze like, well, how is this hard for you? How did this not meet your needs? All of that. Also like to be a little bit forward looking, future looking, where we're thinking about like, well, what kind of problem do we really want for this to solve for somebody someday? And for that, I think you have to kind of look at a payment app that, somebody uses in their daily life, whether it's something like Apple Pay that they use, might use every day at every store they go to, or something that might be like, a savings account with a bank or something, or some other kind of investment vehicle or something like that. So I try to think about like how could Bitcoin fit one of those use cases for the user, and what are the existing products on the market doing, and what's wrong with the existing products on the market? What do people not like about those things?
That's a good one. What do people not? And that's actually something that Millie's wanting to find out at the moment as well, in her research that she's doing. What do people not like? That's a very good question about products.
Yeah, I like how you articulated that. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yep. That gives such a good, clear indication of what we should be building, right? Because if they tell us what they don't like, then it gives us a clear idea of what we should be building or working towards. Almost a futuristic approach. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a nice way to sort of understand like what can we sort of level our expectations around, since people are so used to using these kind of Web 2 applications. So it's like, what are some of their expectations from a product like this, and how can we make sure that we're still meeting that through our design?
Good one.
What's the mental model, and how can we make sure we're meeting that or elevating it?
Yep, good one. Design. Nice. And then we've got user interviews here as well, which was one that I wrote. And this was just more of the traditional user interviews, but with then more structured questions, which I guess we'll come up with in the next part of this, in the next half an hour. We can try to think of what kind of information we can, try to understand during those interviews so that they're useful to the designers. And it's good that we have designers on this call. So, yeah, good. We've got another one here. Engage the plebs. Johnny Oaks, is this a joke now, or?
It's kind of in jest. But basically, I mean, like, there's a lot of really dedicated people in the space that want to contribute in some way. And so I think if we can kind of, if we put this out to them and say, hey, we're putting out these surveys, can you like help spread the word or whatever? Or, they're probably going to be one of the main audiences of Bitcoin products, especially at first, because they're likely the early adopters. So yeah, getting their input on it, because I think a lot of them want to contribute, but a lot of them maybe don't know how to, and this could be an easy way for people to get involved.
Nice. Those are nice ones. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, which really seem to stand out. And this one over here is find a community with a specific problem or use case and try to do a bulk interview centered around their particular problem. That's a good one. Stephen.
It's kind
maybe
of
elaborate on that one. Yeah.
It's a half-formed idea. Just trying to think if there's I mean, I think Calvin explained. So I don't know how you would, what that interview would be structured like, but I just imagine it as dropping into the Slack channel of a community with a specific problem, or showing up on their doorstep if it's a in-person kind of thing, whether it's I don't know, local sports teams and the, problems, they have maybe collecting payments or something like that, or dues or something like that. I don't know if that is a problem, just trying to figure that out. Or, if it's a local business or something like that, a collective of food trucks that is, in your community every Saturday to, sell their stuff, whatever it is, but find this kind of niche audience or something like that, and try to see what their problems are. And then you can kind of get the opinion of all of them, because that's the kind of thing is like, sometimes we talk about user personas and it's like, oh, I interviewed Jack and I interviewed Jill and I interviewed Jane and all that. And like each one of them are entirely different people. But if you try and find like a community where there's going to be many similar people with similar problems, then if you interview all of them, you're going to start to see like common ideas and common problems and common like annoyances and hiccups pop up, because they're all going to have that similar use case.
You touched on something really important, is because, we want to add user personas into the Bitcoin design guide, but it also feels like maybe we should add a guide to finding these personas, because although we could add in personas, when it becomes product specific, then it almost loses its strength, if that makes sense. The people who use Albi, for example, might be a different type of persona, user base, than someone using Bitcoin Core. So, and that's another thing with adding in the personas to the Bitcoin design guide. We can add in these generalist profiles of Bitcoin users or app users who are Bitcoin fans, but how do we become more specific? Just throwing out an idea, throwing out a thought process. I'm curious what everyone thinks about that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that approach. I think it makes a lot of sense to have, however many eight personas or something like that, that broadly describe, a user segment, but have it open, right? Like getting too specific kind of defeats the purpose, I think, especially if it's going into something like the design guide. We want people to be able to kind of like look at all the different segments and see where they can solve certain pain points, right?
Yeah, the most common. I'll just add in a heading over here. How? Oh, I've added it in here already. Okay. Cool. And then the next part, I guess, is what kind of information is actually going to be useful, and this is where we can actually start jamming again. What kind of info within a user persona would be helpful to builders? Maybe here we can jam again and just add in some sticky notes as well. This is where we can get really specific. What kind of information within a user persona would be helpful?
I have a dumb question. So I know so in terms of builders, when we talk about builders, we're talking about people who are like part of the Bitcoin design community and responsible for designing the front end interface, or are we talking more like technical back end builders?
That is a very good question. That is a very good question. Yeah, because those are kind of, I don't know if Stephen can touch on this as well, but kind of the guide is used at the moment, both by developers as well as designers. At least that's the feeling that we have. I think at the moment we tend to group definition-wise the designer and the developer and refer to them as builders. Stephen, feel free to correct me there if I said that wrong.
I mean, sounds about right. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you'd be better equipped to answer the question because you typed out the sentence. So I guess but I mean, just in terms of the community, certainly the guide is the design guide is intended. I would say, yeah, primarily for two audiences: one, designers who don't know a whole lot about Bitcoin yet, or two, developers who know a lot about Bitcoin but don't know a whole lot about user experience and design and things like that. But my hope would be when we talk about builders, what would be useful to builders. My hope would be this might be a fantasy, but the hope would be that a product designer or a developer are able to collaborate. In terms of building something that's really good and meets the user's needs and all of that. But it really could be either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's helpful.
Is it helpful? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess part of the reason I was asking is I feel like just hearing that explanation of how we have sort of the designer who's more focused on design, and then we have the developer who's more focused on technical development. The questions they would ask might be similar, but they would still have like questions that are sort of unique to their particular skill sets. So that sort of adds a nuance to like, what is that question?
You have a good point. Yeah. It makes it a bit tricky, doesn't it? Because we have that double audience within the Bitcoin design guide. Yeah.
And I think that's probably just where, talking to folks and kind of teasing out that specificity will be helpful. Like, I think the questions that we have here so far are really great in terms of the overlap in terms of the roles and how they work on the applications. But it would still be helpful to get like that sort of specific, at you as a developer, what do you expect to see from a user persona that would be helpful to you?
I think this is a really good one. I'm gonna actually just create a new sticky note for that. Um, yeah, you as a developer, what would you like to see? And you as a designer, yes. And then I guess we can vote again. We just
For votes again?
oh yeah, we can just if everyone's finished typing out their stickies. But if you're still busy, just feel free to. We can just vote again. I guess maybe 4 votes, just like the last time, on what kind of information we think would be useful within a user persona. Let the voting begin. Sometimes we play music when we vote too. That's also nice.
I like the potato.
I like the potato too. That's Steven. Steven at his best.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sometimes when you get stuck, you spend a lot of time just like trying to think of what you're going to say next, and it kind of becomes counterproductive. So I like to just stream of thought, just put something down, just to get back in the habit of actually not overthinking it.
Yeah, a good one, Stephen. No idea is a bad idea. I almost had that initial feeling of maybe 4 votes is too little for this one because, yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like the specificity. I mean, it
It
helps
is.
to narrow things down.
It makes you narrow things down. It makes you really choose on 4 good ones. Yeah.
I'm all out of votes.
Yeah, I know there's so many others that I like that I'm like, oh, how do I choose?
It's tricky, this one. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of good ones with this one. And we are down to the last 7 minutes as well, so we've done very well. Is everyone finished voting or?
Finished.
Yep, done here.
Yeah. You as well, Hafsa?
Yes.
Nice. So let's grab the ones here that got the most. So we have this one here. What is your main frustration point with using Bitcoin apps? And we touched on that one as well. That we need to know what they don't like so that we can start building what they do like. It's a good one. What type of work does the user do? That's for, yeah, nice one from Johnny. Now is where it gets a little bit tricky because Stephen has double voted over here on his one. To me, very important. I'll grab that one as well then.
Well, you never said we couldn't.
I never said you couldn't. I never said you couldn't. What does your dream solution for XYZ problem look like? Do you want to elaborate a bit more on that one, Stephen?
Oh, that one actually got oh yeah, that's the one you just moved. Sorry, I think I confused the other one. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I know it's a little narcissistic voting for my own one twice, but I don't know, felt like it was a solid idea. Yeah, I just I don't know. I was being interviewed earlier this summer. There's a Summer of Bitcoin student was working with the Albi project. And some UX stuff for them, and she interviewed me and several other people, and it was really about like not just about like, do you use Bitcoin, do you use Lightning, but also like what other like payment apps do you use and why do you use them and all this kind of stuff. And I just kind of noticed during that conversation, particularly when she would ask me questions about the payment apps that I use every day and trying to understand why I use them, just kind of like how chatty I got. And I think one of the questions she actually asked me was something along the lines of like, what, like, if it could have any feature, what would it have and why would it have it? And I was kind of thinking like, that was actually a very enjoyable process getting to talk about like shit, like if I could have this feature and it would do this and it would do that and all my problems would be solved if it had all of these things. And it's like, that was a very enjoyable experience, just like imagining like what would be this like, one solution that would, fit all my needs. And I mean, that might be different for every one person, but I think that you can really, I think, get some interesting information if you get the user talking about like, just how would they build it,
It's a good one. Yeah, ask people how they would solve the same problem. Like create your dream ideal Bitcoin wallet and tell us what it looks like. Describe it to us as if it were a person. I guess people would have a lot of fun answering that question.
Yeah, you'd probably get a lot of overlap as well. It would probably be very telling on what features to build out.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a nice way of asking it because you're not saying, hey, what features would you like us to build? Because if you ask a person what features would you like us to build, they're not going to be able to have those things come to their mind. But if you say, hey, if you were going to build your dream app, what would it look like? How would it behave? Let them just talk very fluidly, very open, and go back, take some notes on what they say, and you can get some gold from that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely. Let's see. I'll go through the last one quickly. Does the user more frequently make Bitcoin payments or receive Bitcoin payments? That's also a good one. I've taken a bunch here that had 2 votes because I felt that would be, I've taken the 2 votes ones. And what tasks are users trying to accomplish? Also a good one from Johnny as well. And then what concerns do users have when using Bitcoin? Yep, that's also a good one. Nice, good ones. Very nice. So it feels like, and then we can wrap up the call, but it feels like these information that we've decided we want to collect for these personas, some of them are already in question format, but I feel like a next step would be actually making this into a more question format, the ones that are maybe not in question format. Just like what tasks are you trying to accomplish? Instead of what tasks are the users trying to accomplish? And then what type of work do you do? What are your concerns with using Bitcoin? Kind of turn these into questions into these different areas, and then maybe see if there's some sub-questions that come up underneath these main, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 areas. And then maybe see if this will create some sort of, I don't know, persona questionnaire that we can maybe use within the Bitcoin design community. I love it when something tangible comes out of this brainstorming session. I really like that. So
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about it? I'm happy to do that after the call and then share it within the community. I'll try to create some questions, maybe just create a Figma file. And how do you guys feel about that?
Sounds like a game plan.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we did some good work. I mean, we have the direction where we think we should get the data from, and then we can present that as education within the guide. Like, hey, this is where we think you can get this information from. You can do surveys, you can do this, you can do interviews, and then hey, here's the things that we think might be useful for you to. These are the questions that might be useful to ask within the survey. Nice. Cool. Well, we can wrap up the call as a, big thank you to everyone for their time, for jamming on Figma, for giving up an hour on your Friday. I know that speaks volumes of your passion. So
Hey, it was fun. Thank you for leading this. It was great to sit in and
you
chat.
enjoyed it? Yeah. What did you enjoy about it?
I just like engaging with the community. Honestly, I'm on a very small design team right now, and I'm really looking to kind of expand the design circle and just have really good conversations with. Happy Friday on Friday. You know what? It's a good way to spend a Friday. No, it's been very enlightening to sort of learn from each of you and see your perspective into everything. Find questions for myself to articulate since I'm so new to this space and I'm still learning. It was fun.
Nice. Are you known as Hafsa on Slack as well?
Yes.
Cool. I'll reach out to you then if that's okay.
Awesome. Please do.
Johnny, did you enjoy it as well?
Yeah, this was great. So I don't get to do stuff like this in my normal day job. So doing stuff like this and helping contribute to the community is it's great.
If we end up building a whole page in the design guide, on how to create user profiles, then you guys can just link it to and say, hey, I was involved in doing this,
Yeah, exactly.
I'll definitely I'll create just a simple document around how to create user profiles from the session, and you guys can always just hop in on that document, feel free to edit it and so on. How was your first UX research call, Stephen?
Good, very good, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I see Adita has a low internet connection. All right, well, I won't keep you guys any longer. Thank you once again. Please feel free to join in on the future calls. We have fun, we jam. Stephen makes jokes. It's all good. All right. Cheers, guys. Happy Friday.
Take care.
Later, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.